Welcome everyone, my name is PaullyMac. Today I'm bringing you the pick'ems for Week 3 of GBA D-League Season 4. And as always, I am joined by ItzSawk.
What is going on, GBA D-League type people? Week 3 pick'ems coming at you here.
Yes, and before we obviously move into the Week 3 pick'ems, we are going to look at the Week 2 pick'ems, see the results and how people did, and a bit of a mixed bag, a little bit similar to the first week, and having a few people be really great, and one person be absolutely horrible.
Hey!
Rather than Aster the first week we went 2 and 4, it was ItzSawk this time. And ItzSawk, we mentioned last week how you took a bit of a risk on some of your picks, picking 3 games where you were the only person to pick that team, and didn't go as well as you'd planned.
Like I said, it's either going to backfire in my face or I'm going to look like a god. I got one of the 3 right. I mean, that's batting 300 in baseball. I'm good with that.
You did get one of the 3. You did unfortunately miss your lock, though, picking Greg. You believed in Greg, and we had people saying, "Oh gosh," in the comments. Fortunately, Greg did not pick up the victory, and we'll see what people pick for him this week. But that was a game that you were the only one who got wrong, as well as the Exeter Chief Electivires against Durham Dreadagons, where that was a game where you were like, these 2 mons are super important for Melon to win this game.
And then they're not there.
And then, yeah, exactly. Like, the one of them died immediately, and the other one was not a set that would win, like you had said. So.
I facepalmed as soon as I watched his team builder. I'm like, well, there goes my game.
And the game as well, the Detroit game, that was one where I was like, hey, Garchomp and Zapdos will be a problem for Greg. Well, guess what was a problem for Greg?
Huh.
Garchomp and Zapdos. It worked out. But you were the one who did get a CJ, right? You were the only one to predict CJ, so big week there. The fan Discord had a huge week, going 5-1 and getting their lock of the week, so they are actually ahead of Tom, who they're both 10-2, but they do have the 2-0 lock of the week. So shout out to you guys in the fan Discord. Remember, you can go join the fan Discord and you can go and vote in these pick'ems every week, and we'll look at what picks you made for this week once we look into these matchups. So let's look into those week 3 matchups, shall we?
Alrighty, so for the fan Discord this week, you guys are picking Turbo and the Phoenix Midnights over the Baltimore Orioles. You guys are also picking the Texas Pokemon Rangers, coached by Randy, over the New York Empoleons, coached by Godola Dragon. You guys are locking the LA Needle Kings, coached by Danza, over OB Jealous and Ennis Toronto Leaf Storms. You guys are also picking Greg and the Los Angeles Fable over AA Ron 420 and the Calgary Infernapes. You guys are picking Deebs and the Calgary Flame Wheels over the Exeter Chief Electivires, coached by Melantosh. And you guys are also picking Zazo and the Detroit Butterfrees over the Durham Dreadagons, featuring 6-Foot Trash.
Yes, 6-Foot Trash, those of you who don't know, he will be consistently taking shots at Leo throughout this entire season. But let's look into this first matchup, which is between Choice CJ and the Baltimore Orioles versus Turbo and the Phoenix Midnights. Now, you guys went and picked Turbo, and no one else agrees with you. Literally every single analyst went with CJ here, and looking at my notes, I locked this one as well as you, and I'll tell you why I locked him first. Let's look at CJ's matchup. I'm like, there are so many potential win cons here. There's so many mons that Turbo struggles with. A Calm Mind Raikou with Thunderbolt, Aura Sphere, and HP Ice could do a lot of work, especially because of Turbo's speed tiers. He goes from 115 in the Alolan Persian to 100 with Jirachi, and Raikou can afford to run that Rash Nature and run the Aura Sphere to be able to hit Kyurem well because of that, because there's not really much an Alolan Persian is going to do to a Raikou, and on top of that, there's not really a chance for Jirachi to be offensive here because he needs Jirachi to check that Mega Latios. Another thing as well, SD Drapion is something that Turbo might not expect, but does a lot of work here. The combination of its dual stab put in a ton of work here. Again, the Mega Latios is just something that he doesn't switch in too well. It really only has the Jirachi, so that limits the Jirachi that Turbo can bring. And then there's Suicune, which Turbo just does not have much. He has the Bulu. And I guess a Kyurem with Fusionable if it's attack invested, but a special Kyurem kind of does a lot more this week for Turbo. If Klefki goes down, especially based, Kyurem puts in a ton of work. And again, that Bulu is super important for Suicune, and Bulu can't safely switch into a Suicune because you cannot risk getting Scaldburn, because if you get Scaldburn on your Bulu, there goes your best sweet check to Suicune. So that's really why I picked CJ for my lock this week. I feel like there's so many things that CJ has a great matchup here, and not a ton that Turbo has.
Yeah, I also locked CJ because Scarf Chiracion literally just takes the steam behind the woodshed. Stab, so Rock and Fighting, plus Poison Jet, plus Earthquake, has no switch-ins. If at any point Mega Aerodactyl and Masquerain go down, he just clicks EQ. And for anyone in the comment section, Claydol is an Unmon, don't at me. Hashtag get unlocked.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Claydol myself, but Claydol could end up being huge as it is one of the better switches to Archeon, and it can go and switch into that Raikou set that I suggested. It can kind of deal with the HPS, doesn't do a ton, do it, so Earthquake's can be nice, but it's a Claydol.
It's a Claydol, it's an Unmon.
It's a Claydol. Suicune sets up on it, it's all good. But anyway, let's move on to the next matchup, shall we?
Yep, on to the next matchup, we have the Texas Pokemon Rangers, coached by Randy HLD, versus the New York Empoleon, coached by Goldoa Dragon. Now, whenever we look at a matchup for Randy, I always ask myself, where is the Celesteela, Mamoswine, Megalop answer? I'm looking at his team, I'm looking at Goldoa's team, I'm still looking at it, maybe a Scarf Victini? V-Crate does nuke Celesteela and Megalop, however it only does 81 to 96 from Jolly Victini, and you need Jolly if you don't want to get outsped by Scarf Mamoswine. Latios also does a decent amount of work, but you can almost guarantee Bisharp comes for pursuit trapping. Now if you're on Goldoa's side, Excadrill's pretty decent in this game as it doesn't do too bad against the likes of Shaman, Mamoswine, and Rotom, as long as you are Mold Breaker for the latter one. I think Ditto should come to help scout out coverage on Celesteela, Megalop, Latios to help find Goldoa's sets early on, and I can also see something like Z Flagon putting in work. But overall, Randy's team just pressures Goldoa way too much, and Goldoa would have to win every 50-50. I think Randy gets this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also think that Randy does get that one. It is a really tough matchup for Goldoa here, but that Victini, it really depends on what Victini he does bring. It could be it could be a savior here. Now, moving on, we have the next matchup here. We have OP Jellicent and the Toronto Leaf Storms taking on Danza and the LA Nidokings. This was your guys, the fans' lock. It was also the lock for Tom and Aster. And voting going in heavily in favor of Danza, and I can see why by the matchup. First thing I noticed in the matchup, bulk up Mega Gallade. GG. I think that's all we need to talk about here. But no, for real.
All right, next game.
But for real, it does have a great matchup here. The combination of Drain Punch, Ice Punch, and Poison Jab deals with pretty much the entirety of OP Jellicent's team. And on top of that too, it outspeeds his entire team as well. So if it can go and get that those bulk ups up so it can chew a quick attack, it already takes a quick attack because Mega Gallade has good natural bulk. And because quick attack Aerolite did get nerfed in 7th gen, so it doesn't do as much damage as it normally would. It is just so hard to break that Mega Gallade down, and when Drain Punch be able to consistently get its health back on mons that don't resist fighting, it's going to be a huge problem for OP Jellicent to deal with. On top of that, Torn T could be a huge problem here because all the switch-ins that OP Jellicent has to a Torn T does not want to get taunted. Mons like Registeel would want to get Rocks up or potentially T-Wave a Mon or Toxic a Mon there. It doesn't do a ton of damage with even Rock Slide to a Torn T, and it has the regen, so it doesn't really care. Florges as well go and would get taken care of a little bit if it was taunted. It can't go and just sit in front of a Torn T, especially a Z Torn T, because a Z Torn T with the Hurricane or Z Sludge Wave could be a big problem for it. On top of that, he has the speed advantage here. OP Jellicent is a very slow team, its fastest thing being the Virizion, and then the Mega Pinsir after that, so that'd be a huge problem. Now looking over at OP Jellicent's side, Mega Pinsir and Bandit Hoopa are very solid wall breakers here. Does not have a lot of great switch-ins to the flying stab there. You can go and switch in his resist, but it can get coverage for the resist. And on top of that, the Bandit Hoop, if it's a Bandit Hoopa U, it gets a kill every time it gets in with a good matchup. Nothing switches in, even if Fizz Def Tangrowth does not appreciate 2 Hyperspace Furies, especially if rocks are up, it just drops to 2 Hyperspace Furies. Or it's at least a roll heavily in its favor. The only problem with that though is there is that Weavile, which if it is a banded Hoopa and it does lock itself in Hyperspace Fury, cool. Weavile just comes in and either clicks Pursuit or clicks Knockoff, and Weavile is another Mon that does give OP Jellicent a lot of issues. Look for Xurkitree to try to do some things, maybe, but it'll be really hard for even Xurkitree to try to save this one. I don't see really the matchup that OP Jellicent has here. This is another one that I think I could have locked in the favor of Danza, and obviously you guys, the fans, locked it, so.
And so, next up, we got AA Run 2 for 20 in his Calgary Infernus versus Regulator and his Los Angeles Clefable. Now, looking at this one, this just might honestly be a sack-for-sack game, and this is actually my pick for the game of the week to watch. If you're going to watch any game, watch this one. I think this has a chance to be one of the best this entire season. Now, Aaron, Volcanion and Thundurus go absolutely bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-N-A-S. This Decidueye helps pseudo-check Mienshao and Coco, but it doesn't hard wall it to the same effect. Now, the addition of Clefable does help pseudo-check SD Gliscor, which can put in a little bit of work, but it gives Mega Scizor setup. Now, if you're on Greg's side, Mega Scizor does decently well as long as Brawlzong and Volcanion go down. It's also a nice pivot to things like Spexion Mega, Scarf Mienshao, and even Heatran. I can see Spikes plus 3 attacks Ninja coming, as it does help pressure his Hazard Remover, being Donphan and Decidueye. But overall, Greg just hasn't been playing right, and I just think Aaron takes this one, honestly.
Yeah, I also went Aaron here, and as you mentioned, this is going to be a super fun game, so I encourage you all to check out both sides of that game, because that'll be a fun one to watch, absolutely. Now, moving on to the next game, we have the Calgary Flame Wheels and Deebs taking on Melantosh and the Exeter Chief Electivires, and first thing I noticed here was Mega Charizard X for Deebs. That thing is an absolute monster in this matchup, as I put, extremely spook, specifically a bulky DD Zard X. All it really needs is Dual Stab and then DD Roost, and it can just run through Melon's team. Things like Rotom Wash would be typically a more better defensive check here, but to a bulky set obviously doesn't check it because it doesn't do enough damage, even with Hydro Pump, if it has some nice special bulk to it. So if it gets a couple DDs up, it could just be over in favor of the Zardex. It could be a huge problem for Melon. On top of that, Superior outspeeds Melon's entire team. Melon's one of those people who has a really slow team. Superior outspeeds everything. It really depends on what hidden power Deebs decide to bring. If he brings Rock for the Zard Y, or if he brings Fire for the Cobalion. I would prefer, personally, to bring Fire for the Cobalion, because you can still hit Dragon Pulse on the Zard Y, which obviously the Dragon Balls will be needed as well for other things on Melon's team. I believe it was the, I'm trying to remember what it was now. Oh yeah, the Zygarde 50, it'd be nice to have it for that. And just in general, damage against things like the Gengar as well, because plus 2 Dragon Balls does a lot to Gengar, so that thing will be a huge problem. And on top of that, Gravity Lando T here just screams destruction for Melon, as Melon does not have a single ground resist, and all he has is the 2 immunities, and both those immunities, being Rotom Wash and Megazard Y, are now weak to Earthquake in Gravity. Now, looking on the side of Melon, he does have a couple solid win conditions here. Coil Zygarde 50 could be a big problem. Curse Snorlax with, Recycle could be a problem. Curse, Recycle, Earthquake, and Stab, as long as he has Happiness this week. Please remember that this time, Melon. As someone who's used Happiness Mons in the past, there's nothing worse feeling than thinking, it does bug me when people forget to bring Happiness, because I never forgot it myself. So please bring Happiness, or just bring Body Slam or Double Edge, please. But then on top of that, one thing he's got to do, though, is deal with that P2, because P2 stops a lot of his wall breakers from putting in a lot of work, but once P2 is either weakened, and maybe it lost his E-Violite, it could be a big game for Gengar and Megazard Y specifically, as he does not have great switch-ins once P2 is weakened / removed his E-Violite. So we'll see how this matchup goes, but it really depends on how Melon plays the game early. He didn't play the game well early against Leo. One thing that was huge in that week was the Gengar, and he didn't play his Gengar well and let Gengar go down early. So we'll see what he does this week, but it really depends on how he plays that early game to see if he can get himself in a position where he can win with one of those win conditions, or make big work with his wall breakers.
Melon just needs to hire me. I can make his sets every week. I give him the best sets, dude. Anyway, going into our last matchup of the week, we have the Detroit Butterfrees featuring Zazo, Iron Flash Gaming, versus the Durham Druddigons and Leo 6-Foot Hacks. Now, Zazo, you have a god-tier matchup, as Garchomp and Mega Diancie go to town on Leo's team. And honestly, if Cress ever goes down, it's over. There is no chance. Zazo is that good of a player, and he has the matchup to boot. If you're from Leo's side, Serena is a must-bring this game, along with Cress, in order to at least check Garchomp. That thing eats your entire team for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or at least it has the jawline for it.
I mean, it does. You're not wrong there. And on top of that, too, to add to that, just, Z Outrage Garchomp just basically gets a kill. If it gets an SC evidence, it's just Z Outrage. Something dies, every time for Leo. It's going to be a rough matchup for Leo there.
Now, I am getting word through Discord message that Flying Bird says, believe in Aaron, everyone. Everyone believe in Aaron. Oh gosh, in the comments if you believe in Aaron.
Yes. Oh gosh, against...
Oh gosh, against Greg.
Against Greg.
Against Greg. You gotta use it against him. Rebel!
Maybe it'll help Greg win. Who knows?
I mean, he's gotta try something.
He does, and hopefully he'll, I picked him against him this week, and hey, maybe that's what he needs to, and maybe he needs me going against him for him to get the win. I know that happened with Tom in the main league this season. Every time I picked against him, he won. Every time I picked for him, he lost. So maybe that'll be Greg's, maybe that'll help Greg win this week.
Now, going back to the Detroit game, Garchomp runs through Leo like Komo did to Monotui. Like, it's that bad.
Oh yeah, it's honestly like he was talking about Leo was talking about his bad matchup against Zygarde 50 against Melon, and we talked about that as well. Zygarde is on a whole nother level in this game because it actually is a reliable Dragon Stab that Zygarde does not have. That's the big difference there. So
I think we've gone through everything.
I believe we have. So, with that being said, let us know down below what your picks are for this week if you do not agree with the fan Discord, and put how well you've been doing so far. If you've been consistently voting in the comments, and yeah, make sure to go to the fan Discord as well if you've not. Join that, and you can make your votes every single week, as well as stay up to date with all the uploads and everything going on in the D-League.
Absolutely. I need more friends over in the fan Discord. Come join in, chit chat, tell us your favorite team, and we'll have some fun.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, we're going to get on out of here. Thanks for stopping by. Bye-bye.
Peace out.